Hey, this is Pierre Vidaco talking. I wanted to revisit this infographic I built a long time ago, stating that adoption is not digital transformation. I think it has been a very important point recently, because with the recession coming, with the hybrid world, we need to revisit how people are working. And often, we don't you stay at the level of adoption. So just a quick review of this infographic. To me, there are four stages in the digital transformation. First, you need to deploy the technology for sure. No technology, no digital transformation. But then you need to learn the technology because you need to understand how the tools are working. But that's not enough. And then you need to leverage the technology in your day-to-day job. That's what I call the business transformation. And finally, you need to change how you're working. And it's a cultural change. So that's what I call digital transformation. So I just changed it to give more examples of what has to change. So when you're deploying the tool, you say, I have the tool. When you in the adoption phase, I use the tools. And I'll give you some examples where you're using the tools, but it's not at all a digital transformation. You might not be efficient. You might be less efficient with the tools. Then there's I leverage the tool. Here I take some benefits because I learn how to use the tools, but now I can, figure out how they can help me in my day-to-day work. And finally, I change my behaviors. It's a cultural shift, but that creates momentum in the organization. So I think those four steps are very important and you shouldn't stop. And I will say today, most of the customers are on the bottom phase 4 and 3. I see a lot of people because of COVID. It's not, it was legit because of COVID. They had to deploy very quickly a lot of things because they had to work from home, and they just deployed it. They didn't train people, so a lot of customers are still in the first ground phase, the phase 4 here. But most of them, I will say, they train people minimum, so they had made the first two steps, but still, it's not digital transformation. You cannot stop there. And with the do more with less concept that I think Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, presented recently, I think you need to leverage more now your tools, and so you need to go further, and that goes with education, communication, and definitely organizational change management. So let me give you a few examples. If I'm looking at how people are working today, okay, they have Outlook, they send emails, but when they might not know, for example, that they can and they can send email from different device. If bring your own device is allowed, they can even do that from home. Um, but they might still attach document. So the next step might be to say, okay, you can now attach document in your email that are stored in OneDrive, so there's a central place of your document. But still, there's some room for improvement here. Even if you do that, you have a use case where now you can send him a document with a central access to the document. Everyone has the same document, one source of truth. And there's definitely other ways, like for example, maybe you shouldn't use Outlook, and for example, you should never send an email internally, and you should use Teams instead of that, and for transparency reasons. So that's a change of behavior because now you're not in a self-centric mode where people control their inbox. You're in a team, so it's all about compromise, working together in a team. So it's a change of behavior, but the cultural shift because it means more transparency. People are more aware of what's going on rather than being siloed in silos in Outlook. So another example is regarding your meetings. So same, the first steps are the same. So I need to figure out how to use Outlook. That's the first phase. When you deploy, I think it's pretty pretty obvious now that people know how to use Outlook. Even though I don't know if people understand the focus tab, and sometimes people want to, they ask us, how do I delete, or I make this disappear because I have the feeling that I'm missing emails, because behind the focus mode there's AI that decide for you what is deciding for you what is important to you, based on, some patterns of what you read, and it's sorted in the other tab, what's not is that important. Um, so if you don't have some education here, people don't understand what is a focus and they don't know if they can trust it. I use focus mode all the time. It saves me time because a lot of email I receive, they're not priority for me. So it does a very good job on that. I'd never miss any important email thanks to focus mode in Outlook. So there's a need for some education. And also, when you talk about meeting, maybe one thing you now where a use case you have a hard time to solve is when you have to invite people to a meeting and find slots, and people are not all in your organization, so you don't have access to the calendar. Then you can use Find Time, which is an add-on to Outlook that help you to find the right slot and people can vote. So that's a use case. That's more business transformation, and just a simple example. And the final thing is, you know, don't use or don't go to a meeting to discuss, inform people. It's a loss of time. Why don't you do that in a team? And maybe during the meeting, you're just focusing on what is key, or you use the meeting slot, a reduced time for that, where you can make decisions because everything has been discussed before. So you're using Teams to have a dialogue before the meeting. And when you're in a meeting, you're just focusing on what is key in the meeting, making decision in general. Or sometimes it's to discuss about complex project that cannot be explained by a discussion in a team or chat or email. So it's really building best practices, how people should leverage teams in terms of behavior. A very simple element, for example, that I discussed the other day with a customer. The when you're using in Teams, when you're using uh, a background. So either it's just like now I have my natural environment, or you use a background which could be a blur background, so you don't really see what's behind, but you can still see there's something. And there's a background, you can put an image. In terms of best practice, what I recommend is to put an image. I know that nobody, everybody doesn't have to agree with me, but at least it's a discussion that you can have. Why do I uh, recommend to use an image as a background? Because here, for example, you see my background, so you see my privacy. In the If you have a blur background, you will see motion, so that can disturb people. If somebody, a kid or whatever, is going in your back, and if you have an image, if it's not a fancy image, if either you have a corporate background or you can use, let's say, a normal background, not too fancy. That, respect the privacy, doesn't disturb people, and even you can share your personality. If you have a specific background, you can add your own background, as long as it's not too disturbing for the people who are looking at you. That's an element of culture. There's tons of other elements of culture. It's just a very small example that you need to figure out, and you need to try to think how you're going to align on that. Another example is about collaboration. So same pyramid, first you deploy OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint. Well, you're there, you have all the tools, you're modern, but are you really efficient? Did you achieve a digital transformation? No. So the next step is to know how to, when you're collaborating, you know how to work on documents, you know how to delete, restore, share, comment, co-author, whatever you can do on the document. So you need education for that. Either you find it by yourself, you're curious enough, you find you have, a learning portal or you have a training, depends on your maturity. But you need to learn. That's the adoption phase. You need to learn how to use the tool. The next stage is um, you're once you understand the tool, you need to organize how you're going to work with the tool. For example, you can have a standard team. Every time you're starting a project, there's a standard team with, you know, already standard channels with already standard folders to store your document that help you to, go right away in the project and start to work and have common patterns on how to work together in the project with a common structure. But then again, same thing. If you're working on a project, you have a team, and you're using team just to store files, and you still send email with a link to the file, there is no digital transformation. You might be a little bit more effective than before, but still it's quite confusing. If some people are using Outlook to send email about the project and other people are using Teams, you can imagine that it's very disturbing. It doesn't align how people work, and they need to understand what are the patterns of other people when they're collaborating with them. It's, you need to adjust. So that's why I think it's really key to do all the steps. Even if it takes time, you need to go from phase 4 to phase 1 little by little. Phase 4 is the most easy thing to do, is to deploy technology. I can tell you we're doing that for a lot of customers. It's easy. It's a bit and bytes. So it's simple. The second phase is not that complicated to learn how to use the technology. You just need to have a training in place or some learning platform so people can understand how to use technology. But don't stop there. And if you want to do more with less, try to think about your use cases, how you can leverage the technology. And here I'm just talking about 3 products, but there's so many for example, just in Microsoft 365, there's so many ways to leverage the technology, and there's so many different ways depending on your job, on your department, on your maturity. So this is important to have a dialogue with the end users to identify the right use case. But finally, I think it's even more important to have a common pattern of how you're going to work together, have common and a clear vision and clear understanding, how people can work together so they can understand the alignment they need, and it will be beneficial for everybody. Even if there's always be some people gonna escape from that, there's always a little bit of resistance. But if you don't have any common patterns to work together, then it's you come back to individual and self-centric culture when it comes to collaborate, and collaboration is definitely not self-centric, and that what creates these connections between people, and that can create bureaucracy and a lot of problems. It's not just it cannot be solved only with a policy or common patterns or best practices. It needs education. It needs you know awareness, and it needs to be persistence. Rinse and repeat the message. Be sure you can see if some behaviors are not changing. Educate people on what are the benefits. Try to spotlight the good behaviors to other people so they can understand the benefits, not from you but from people who are experiencing them. So that was my revisit of my infographic on digital transformation. Hope this was helpful.